Nothing announce it. Nothing finish. It just continue.
Morning come, same way night did go. No ceremony, no mark. Something remain without name.
Not louder, not clearer. Just present.
After sound pass, after light dim, still what travel through never stop moving. It slow down, it thin out, but it not disappear.
Some things only change distance. If you reach this far, you already know.
Still
Nothing announce, nothing finish. It just continue.
nothing announces, nothing finish. It just continue. Nothing announce it,
Nothing announce it.
nothing finish.
Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it,
Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing finish. It just continue.
Morning come, same way night did go. No ceremony, no mark. Something remain without name.
Not louder, not clearer. Just present.
After sound pass, after light dim, still what travel through never stop moving. It slow down, it thin out, but it not disappear.
Some things only change distance. If you reach this far, you already know.
Still
Nothing announce, nothing finish. It just continue.
nothing announces, nothing finish. It just continue. Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it.
Nothing finish.
Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce. announce it. Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing finish. It just continue.
Morning come, same way night dig go. No ceremony, no mark. Something remain without need.
Not louder, not clearer. Just present.
After sound pass, after light dim. What travel through
Italian composer and pianist Ludovico Einaudi with Rose Bay from his album The Summer Portraits, released last year on one of classical music's best record labels, Decca. Einaudi composed the piece spontaneously, and its name is the suburb of Sydney, where Einaudi's grandfather, Wanda Aldrovandi, emigrated to Australia in the 1930s. His maternal grandfather was a top conductor who performed in front of Puccini but refused to play for Italy's fascist government, and he left in protest. But his departure, when Einaudi's mother was just 12 years old, left a hole at the center of the family. Aldrovandi wrote letters to his children, sent coats and shoes in the winter, but he never saw them again. I grew up with the image of this person that I never saw, Einaudi says. My mother missed her father all her life. Music became a place where she could connect to him. And thanks to Sue Forrest for that request. Good morning, Balericans. I'm Colleen Cosmo Murphy, hosting your weekly Balearic Breakfast on my Mixcloud Live until high noon. And greetings to all gathered over on the chat group. And thank you, as always, for keeping me company. I had a lovely weekend in Cork, Ireland. I played at a lovely festival and then took a day to walk around the city, trying to imagine what it was like a couple of centuries ago, really trying to get a picture of what my great-grandfather saw as he sailed out of Cork Harbor with the final destination of Boston, Massachusetts. And most likely he never returned to his homeland. He's a bit of a mystery man to me. I don't know. I need to find out more about him. And as someone who did emigrate to another country, but with modern travel and communications, I'm really in awe of how my ancestors and family members from Ireland and Sweden, and even my English grandmother, left everything and everything they knew, everyone they knew behind, and they went across an ocean, often sailing in steerage class right at the bottom in the hull of the boat, to a country they knew very little about, and most of them never even returned back to their home country. So I really thank my ancestors. I also hugely admire them. On last week's show, I said I loved playing at Irish festivals, and lo and behold, I think I manifested something, as a day later I received a last-minute booking to play at another Irish festival in Waterford, all together now in a couple of weeks' time on Saturday, the 1st of August. Looking forward to that, and so I will have to manifest more in the future, I think. Also looking forward to Heidegluen in Berlin this Saturday, Treavari Fest in Norway's Arctic Circle next week, and I'm just finishing Karl Ove Knausgaard's sixth and final volume of his My Struggle series. Just a few more pages to go. I've been lugging that book around, 1,200 pages, hardcover as well. Oh my gosh, quite a book to lug around all summer. In any case, I'll also be at some English festivals too. Electric Paradise in Milton Keynes, Houghton Festival. Again, I'm playing in the Stallions tent on this Sunday. And then it's We Out Here Festival. And I'll be sequestered in our Love Dancing tent for most of the weekend. And my Cosmodelica takeover is on Saturday. So there's a lot to look forward to for the remainder of the summer. And I certainly hope today's show is something you're looking forward to. The first half is a mixture of new songs by Turbo Tito, DJ Coco, Dave Angel, and more, and also some more of your requests. And on the second half, we have a chat with Pete Herbert of Music for Swimming Pools. He's definitely been a staple on the Balearic scene. And he's also put together an exclusive mix for us ahead of his appearance at this weekend's Campo Sancho Festival, so stick around. Now, this next one is just gorgeous, and I send immense thanks to John Weir for putting it on my radar. It's a Balearic folk classic in the making, if it isn't one already, and it has the best name, Sailing, and it's not the Christopher Cross version, although I really love that one, actually, I have to say, but this one came out 2 years earlier in 1977 on an album called Upon Owanda's Wing by Gary Marks, who's been making music for 5 decades and has been described as the best singer-songwriter you've never heard, but now you will. He's released 12 albums of his folk rock jazz and is also a published novelist. Gary Marks with Sailing.
Some see time as a river, a moving line of predestined hours floating endlessly. It's so easy to believe until I see where it begins and ends, melting all of the days and nights together, melting all of the present time with my dreams, finally reaching the sea. Of balance, like sailing, trying to find my way through the changes, centering in between the tides of the day and my will, but still melting all of the days and nights together, melting all of the present time with my dreams, finally reaching the sea. I can feel the stream of hope encompassing all of the rain that's fallen, all of the misery. When I look into your eyes and find your magic so alive and free, melting all of the days and nights together, melting all of the present time with our dreams, finally reaching the sea.
Una Quand tu deviens libre, tout est clair. Si tu deviens libre, laisse le passé disparaître. Si tu me vois forte, ouvre les yeux et prends ma main. Quand je deviens douce, j'oublierai pas mes caresses. Et quand j'entends le son de ta guitare, et puis je chante notre histoire, nouvelle mélodie, on devrait quand même prendre du temps pour voyager. C'est notre chance, allez danse. Je vais glisser ma voix entre la patrie et la base. Si tu m'entends, viens voyager avec moi. Si tu te sens libre, tu deviens moins agité. Écoute cette mélodie, elle nous envoie dans des rêves. Tu n'es pas tout seul, manipulation inutile. Si tu entends le rythme, allez va. Le rythme, la passion, le son et la vitesse. Le rythme, la passion, écoute et puis je glisse. Si tu te sens libre, tu pourras ouvrir tous tes ports, voir la terre entière. Si tu te sens libre, tu pourras ouvrir tous tes ports. Allez, viens me voir. Dans une nouvelle fréquence, trouve le rythme, viens danser à travers nos rêves. Ne te perds pas, je suis avec toi, mon amour. Écoute, on va partir.
La Force de Melody by Thievery Corporation featuring Lulu Gallicani, and that's from the Washington, D.C. duo's album Treasures from the Temple, a companion LP to their 2017 LP Temple of I, their 8th album. And since 2020's Symphonique, one half of the duo, Eric Hilton, has released a load of solo albums, and this September, Thievery Corporation are on their 30th anniversary tour throughout America. And thank you to Tom Torres in Vienna for that request. Ahead of that, Sueño de Amor by Zulu from his self-titled 1974 LP, and the enigmatic Peruvian musician Zulu's real name, Miguel Angel Ruiz Obregoso. He links psych-tinged rock with Afro-Latin American beats and folk pop, and he was also a member of bands Traffic Sound and Los Nuevos Shane. But his only solo album commands a unique aura as a numinous rarity.
in a society like
his
this
only
one,
album before
that
he immersed
default
himself
English
in a religious
is what I'm
community
doing right
preaching
here,
the Bible.
then
Zulu
anything
was
else
released a couple of
seems
years
lesser.
ago by
It seems like it's, well,
Vampi
just a
Spain,
dialect,
and thank you
as
to
people put it.
Luca
So,
Ospatone
real
for
language
that
is in the Wall
request.
Street Journal.
Now, this
Then
next
there's all
one
this other
is a
stuff that's
request
only
from
spoken,
Tim Ovington for
and
the
you know,
late South
it's
African
in hip-hop,
icon
and
Hugh
well, they keep
Masekela,
using bad
who,
words,
as an
and so especially that one.
anti-apartheid
Black English
campaigner, was
especially. That's no
exiled
good.
from his
That's
homeland.
not real.
And
So it's the
after emigrating to the
responsibility of
USA
somebody
in
like
the
me
1960s,
to explain
he was
how many
befriended by Harry
sophisticated things are going
Belafonte,
on
collaborated
in
with
this
Abdullah
supposedly
Ibrahim,
broken
and
down
made guest
speech.
appearances on albums by Paul Simon and the Byrds. At the same time, he was making his own recordings and had his own label with Stuart
My name is
Levine
John
called
McWhorter.
Chisa.
I teach
A couple of
linguistics at
decades ago,
Columbia
BBE
University.
released a
I
Hugh
host the
Masekela
podcast
compilation,
Lexicon
The
Valley,
Chisa Years
and I'm a
from
contributing editor at The
1965 to
Atlantic.
1975,
Linguistics is the
rare
study,
and unreleased.
not so much of
And it
what people
features
say,
our
but
next
how they
song,
say it. It's
Hugh
the scientific
Masekela
study
and
of language.
Oja
It's an
with
umbrella term.
Afrobeat blues.
You know, the idea that there's a white way of speaking and a black way of speaking can sound like what someone like me is saying is that at first everybody talked one way, and then black people ran off into a corner and started talking in their own way, and damn it, why don't they stop that? It wasn't anything like that. Really, it's this. Black English is English because black English is spoken here, and we're around so many English speakers. But it is something that has lasted a very long time. It is something now that has a whole history of transmogrification over the centuries. It is something that has informed what is the world's most popular music. Why in the world are people using black English terms in New Guinea? I've heard it. I have heard people in New Guinea who don't speak a word of English but are rapping in whatever they're rapping in. And there are all sorts of words and little phrases that are from black English spoken in the United States. They'll never meet a black person. Or if I met them, I was the one they'll ever meet. That's it. And this is going on in China. That's a pretty amazing thing, given where black English started. The origins of black English start with the fact that Africans are brought to the United States. And big surprise, they don't speak English at first. Africa has its own language. And so what do you do when nobody is invested in teaching you the language? There's no such thing as language lessons. There's no Berlitz. There's no Rosetta Stone. You're there to work. So what happens, especially if you're over about 15 or 16? You're going to learn English by hook or crook, but it's not going to be perfect English because after a certain point, human beings almost never can learn languages perfectly. And then also, who are you learning English from? The whites who these slaves work alongside, often those indentured servants that you learn about or don't learn about in school, or even just people running the plantation who are very poor, lower class, poor people themselves. What kind of English are you going to hear? Not the English that I'm speaking right now. So the slaves were learning English from people who use many different grammatical constructions than anybody who was speaking standard American English to the extent that existed at the time. So what you had was dialects of English that we're not used to, being learned but not completely by grown-up people who have a lot to do other than studying English. And the result was an English that mixes and respects various, to us, obscure dialects of English and gives some of them a close shave and leaves out some of the things that aren't necessary. So, for example, if you hear somebody say, he your brother, there's no lack of understanding. The verb to be is not there, but about every other language in the world does it that way anyway. And so, given the fact that the verb to be in English is very complicated, and, his, our, contraction, you're learning English on the fly, you're going to leave that out. So that goes. There's a little collection of things like that in English that make it sound like it's just a whole bunch of mistakes. When really what it is making English make more sense than it does. And then a lot of the other things that sound exotic in that English are really just Irish English. It's the English of Western England, places like Cornwall and Devon, and sometimes things from up in Yorkshire. Stuff that we don't hear unless we're real fans of British television and movies. And even then, you'd have to listen very closely to and so black English is really interesting. It sounds to very many Americans like just a bunch of mistakes. really is something exotic and fascinating. It is a linguistic victory. On top of all that, this is the fun thing about language. You have adults, they learn every single bit of what they're hearing, and what they leave out is the stuff that frankly shouldn't have been there anyway. Take a towel, hold it in your hands, roll it around, pat it on the head, and then place it gently on the floor, and watch where it goes. Imagine that vowel. A vowel. Let's make that vowel. Let's make that vowel ah. Ah is going to move. Ah is a living thing. Ah is a cat. Ah can move, and it can become ah. Ah could move, and instead of being ah, it can become oh. And these places ah can move. It's like chess. In one dialect, ah is going to go off and be ah. In some other dialect, it might become ah. But in a third dialect, it's going to become oh. And so, the next thing you know, you're calling something meows a pop. As time goes by, it's a cat. That actually happens. But then on the other hand, it could be that there's something that you're calling a stone that you couldn't even throw at the wall. And after a while, you're calling it a stone. That happens. Vowels move in different directions. If people are not living together or they're not thinking together, their vowels move in different places. The result is the black sound. Now you could call it, the result is the white sound. You can say that it's but the vowels are not going to be in the same place. Black English gets made fun of. It's Ebonics. It's all about cutting things up and moving things off. But all these hidden complexities in Black English that make it even fiercer than other words. And so where you are in the house, you feel that little silly slang. Maybe up at the place, maybe the club is upstairs, maybe the DJ is up on the stand. And frankly, you're busy, you don't think about it. Up is just some stupid slang. But then if you listen more closely, you hear people saying all sorts of things. I knew a guy who I knew he lived on the ground floor. And he was talking about a party he had had the week before. And he said, there was buck-naked people up in my house. And his house wasn't up anything. I don't think there was even a basement. And yet he said that. And that's a hair out of place. And then you figure, well, maybe he doesn't know what up is. But then another time, I heard somebody saying, you know, I ain't got no food up in my house. Once again, I was thinking, you live downstairs. And so after a while, you realize that the up is not up anything. And if you listen and you listen, and this is what linguistics is. You can be studying Bulgarian, you're doing the same thing. You're trying to find the sense in what seems like chaos. If you listen to the way people use it, you also have to listen to the way people don't use it. Nobody would say, they're on the phone, they say, well, give me a chance to come get you. Right now, I'm up at the dentist, and I can't get you now. No, even if the dentist was on the 37th floor, you wouldn't say you were up at the dentist. Why? Because you don't want to be at the dentist. That up is a marker of intimacy. The reason people say up in that way, that Black English does up in that way, is because there is this explicit use of grammar that indicates that you have a warm feeling towards wherever you're talking about. I remember another woman saying, I was getting used to being up in the bed. Now, maybe she had one of those tall beds, but that's not what she meant. She meant that you're comfortable in bed. That's intricate, because standard English doesn't have that. You might say something like, well, we're here in the house and we're quite comfortable. Or something like, well, I was getting used to being in the bed, all nice and cozy, or something. But Black English has just the up. Multiply that by like 25, and you've got all sorts of things that show that the idea that Black English is broken is an artifact of the fact that all we know to listen for think that Black English would have disappeared because everybody's talking together, but it doesn't happen. And that's because people subconsciously reflect how they feel, who they feel closest to, what they identify with in aspects of their speech. That's especially in terms of sounds that you make when you talk, how you shape your mouth. That's also in terms of subtle aspects of your grammar. Now, there's a romantic way of putting this which says that people, and it's not only Black people who express this way, but people express their identities deliberately by making their language different from others. That's true of slang. You're going to use different words for this thing or that thing out of a sense that we are not them. Or we all know teenagers do that. But when you're getting to most of language, or frankly, the part of language that is the most interesting because it's harder to get a handle on, the sounds, the grammar, the order that you put words in, nobody's thinking of that consciously. It's a magnificently subconscious process where people speak differently because you talk the way the people who you're most comfortable with talk. And so, Black English ends up staying the way it is because Black people love each other more than they love other people, which I think is a pretty innocent thing. And the glory of it is that Black English, this is the question that any teacher about Black English gets from somebody who raises their hand. For some reason, they're always male. For some reason, it's usually a white person. Let's say that his name is Tyler. Tyler is going to ask, well, is Black English different from place to place? Shouldn't there be different dialects of Black English? And I always say, yes, there are, but those dialects are
Eleanor
nevertheless amazingly
Rigby
similar.
picks
There's
up
a
the
certain basic
rise in a
grammatical
church
pattern
where a
that has
wedding
stayed more or
has
less the way
been
it is for at
lives
least
in a
150 years.
dream.
And that's because there
Waits
is, even on a
at the
subconscious
window,
level, a
wearing the face that she
cross-continental
keeps in a
Black
jar
community.
by
And so
the
it's an
door.
amazing
Who will
thing
sit
that it persists the way it
for?
does. And the
All
only way
the
that it would
lonely
disappear
people, where
would
do
be
they
if
all
there
come
really were no
from?
color line on any level. So
All
anybody
the
who wants to
lonely
say
people,
that
where
we
do
should be
they
past
all
race because people live
belong?
next door to each other and there's some Black CEOs, well, no, there are richer
Father
issues than that. And one way you know it is
writing
because
the
Black people
words
don't
of a
talk like
sermon
white
that
people,
no
white
one
people
will
don't talk like
hear,
black people. To
no
the
one
extent
comes
that
near.
increasingly white
Look
people
at
talk
him
like black
working,
people. And that's something
darning
that
his
there are many
socks in the
differing
night when
opinions
there's
about, but
nobody
especially if you
there.
get a little
What does
older.
he
Like, I'm of course
care?
not old, but being
All
55,
the
I
lonely
can say that I have
people, where
seen over
do
the
they
past
all
25 years
come
a
from?
blackish way of talking among
All
many
the
white people that
lonely
didn't exist
people, where
among
do
very
they all
white people
belong?
in the 1980s. One of the dangers of Black English being thought of as lesser is that a child who speaks Black English in class may be thought of as indicating lesser intelligence, or simply as being in need of constant correction, even at a young age, which big surprise can turn a person off from the scholastic endeavor. A problem can be that if a person speaks Black English or has what you might call a Black accent, that they will be less likely to get an apartment or even a job, phone interviews and all. And then there's also an issue, which is that court stenographers have been shown to have a tendency to mistranscribe aspects of Black English in some cases that actually affect how that person is going to be seen, treated, and sentenced.
Eleanor
And so
Rigby
it's the job
died in the
of
church
anybody
and was
who
buried
represents
along
Black
with a
people to
name
make clear
nobody
that things like this need
came.
to be attended to. And
Father
people doing that kind of thing
Mackenzie,
often complain
wiping
that
the dirt
society
from
never
his
seems to
hands
get
as he
the
walks
message.
from the
One
grave.
ray
No
of
one
sunshine
was
is
saved.
that social media, for all of the
All
damage
the
that
lonely
it does in
people,
many
where
ways,
do
gets
they
messages out
all
better.
come
And
from?
my sense of things
All the
is that
lonely
the idea
people,
that
where
Black
do
English is
they
not
all
broken language,
belong?
the idea that we need to
All the
beware discriminating
lonely
against
people,
people
where
because they sound
do
black
they
or
all
over the internet. All of those messages get out
belong?
better and more widely and more resonantly now than they used to. My sense is that the podcast in particular gets things into people's heads better than any printed page ever did. So I'm optimistic that America will grow up linguistically to a certain extent. All human speech is equally expressive, and all human speech convey equal amounts of nuance. So I would just say that Black English is equally efficient, equally
A
song
lovely request from Archer in
any kind of
Paris for a
standard
jazzy folk
And
cover of the
given
Beatles'
what our
Eleanor
people
Rigby
went
by
through,
Swedish
the
singer,
fact that
gospel
there are
artist,
these
and
nearly
priest
unrecognizable
Ingmar
Englishes
Johansson,
spoken all
and
over
that's
the
from his
world
second
is a kind
album,
of linguistic
Bildstock,
victory.
released in
And if there
1979.
ever will be
And he's
a
been
youth
releasing
lingua
albums
franca
throughout the
for real,
decades.
it's going to be
And
this
the
thing that was
Swedish
created by
Lutheran
African
hymn book
slaves
includes
in
three
the
of his
16 and
original compositions.
1700s.
Kind of a
Here
holy
we
show
are.
today here on Balearic
I
Breakfast.
am
Anyways,
very
that's a
happy
beautiful
to
cover
have
of the
grown
Beatles
up listening
classic. Love that one.
to that
Ahead of that,
speech,
the Japanese
to be interested
DJ,
in that speech,
turntablist,
to
and
be part of
producer
that speech.
DJ Coco,
You should be
aka
too.
Shimokita. His cover of the Jorge Ben Tokina Brazilian classic, Carolina Carol Bella, and that's coming out on Japan's Flower Records in September. He's also known as the 45 Wizard, as he does great turntable stunts.
Angela
with
Davis, the
two
26-year-old
45s. They're,
former
really hard
UCLA
to scratch,
assistant
hard to
professor,
scratch on
charged with
12
one count of
singles.
murder
I'm not
and
a
5
scratch
counts
DJ,
of
but I can just see
Under
how much
California
harder
law,
it is.
which holds anyone
In any
who aids a
case,
major
he's
crime
the
as
Tokyo
guilty
DJ.
as
He's
the
made a
participant.
few different covers. One of Malcolm McLaren's World Famous, one of Tanya Maria's Made in New York, and he's also behind a couple of great box sets we've featured on the show, Brazil 45 and Cuba 45. Okay, Naya Beat is known for reissuing British, Asian, and any kind of South Asian dance classics, and they reissued the first British Asian electronic dance album by
time I
Mohinder Kaur
spent
Bamra,
in
his
jail
1982
had
album
an
Punjabi
enormous
Disco.
impact on
And then label founders Turbo Tito
I
and
was,
Rogs did a cover
arrested
of one
in
of
New
the
York
album's
City.
biggest
Therefore,
singles,
I spent some time
Da
in the New York
Prior,
Women's House
Da
of
Pyre De
Detention.
Gaia, featuring Pia Malik from the band Say
This is
She
Angela
She.
Davis.
And they released it
December
last year with the
5th,
remix by
1970.
Psych Magic.
Speaking to
And
you
now
through the
there's
concrete
another
walls
remix
and
on the
bars
way.
of the
This
Women's
one
House of
from
Detention
Wolfie
in New York,
versus Projections.
where I'm being
And even
held
though it's
captive,
under a
victim of a
radio
gigantic
embargo, they
frame-up.
said I could play it.
I
So
wrote
here it
my
is,
first
a
published
fresh biscuit
article
served
when
up
I was in
first
jail.
on Balearic
The
Breakfast.
title of that article was The Role of Black Women in the Community of Slaves. And I was writing about slavery, but I was trying to respond to the ideas that were circulating at the time that were designed to put black women in their place and to argue that black liberation really was only about liberation of the black man. And I can remember in the 1960s as an activist having to address critiques that came from both men and women who argued that black women should not be in the forefront of the movement, that we as black women should be doing the cooking and the domestic work, and if we had a role in these new movements that were emerging, then it should be perhaps at the education. I personally remember getting into a number of arguments with people very much captured by that notion that in order for the black man to rise, the black woman had to step back. And so I wrote that article in 1970. It was published in the Black Star. And about 10 years later, I decided to write Women, Race, and Class. Because I thought it was important to point out the part that black women played in the black struggle, but also the part that black women played in the women's struggle. It tries to look at the ways in which black women were responsible for so much of this impulse toward freedom, and how black women actually use their role in the domestic environment in order to promote education, in order to promote liberation, including helping to organize slave revolts. I understand that there's new literature about the role that black women played in slavery. black women do to assist us not only in moving toward an end to racism, but also toward greater democracy and also toward the eventual emancipation of women. Black women were some of the most ardent activists for the 15th Amendment, which effectively gave black men the vote. And then, of course, later, when white women were struggling for women's suffrage, black women were right there fighting for the right of women to vote. People like Ida B. Wells, Mary Church Terrell, and so many others were in the forefront of the suffrage movement. But when it was finally passed, when women's suffrage was finally passed, the 19th Amendment in 1920, it was white women who got to experience that new right, and black women did not really get the vote until 1965, when the Voting Rights Act was passed. The women in the Black Lives Matter movement began to challenge the whole notion of leadership that we've taken for granted. That leadership of movements, first of all, leadership of black movements is almost always a black man, and it's often a minister, but certainly a charismatic, individual black man. And they reached back by reading the stories about Ella Baker, who was one of the major figures of the civil rights movement, but who was not acknowledged at the time because she challenged Dr. King and she challenged ministers and she argued that we didn't need these figures in order to find leadership, that we can find leadership among the rank and file of the movement. Bandy's wonderful book on Ella Baker and the Freedom Movement was obviously read by women who then began to offer us a very different conception of leadership, a conception of collective leadership. And this is where we are today. The system of slavery was totally in opposition to the development of any kind of family life in the way that we know the family. Because, of course, the slave master owns the body, legally owns the body of the slave, and is therefore responsible for the reproduction of those bodies, which means in many instances in the South that women were compelled to give birth. As many times as possible. And of course, the major part of the calls the Negro family a case for national action.
Daniel Moynihan, until this summer, Assistant Secretary of Labor, was in charge of the study and was staggered by it. Moynihan says the Negro family structure is collapsing, and we asked him the reasons.
First is, remember that American slavery was the worst slavery the world has ever known. There's no other slavery like it.
And he always just like right ahead. So argue that it meant that the black family could not thrive, could not exist as a unit, because the slaveholders were only ever interested in the laboring capacity, and therefore men were often sold away. And it's very interesting that when you look at black babies, and I thought about this in relation to my own family. In my own family, there are about 2 male names, right? So everyone is either called Dad, my father's name, and then my brother Reggie. The naming practices, it seems to me, reflected the desire to guarantee the privilege of men who were so low. So that if you always name the son, the first son after the father, then you have the at least the spiritual presence of the father in the family, even though the father has been sold off to another state. However, what is important how to make sense. The biological relative, the biological father, might have been sold away. There are so many examples of adoptive relationships that play right? And I think all of this comes from slavery. It was this desire to create community, this desire to create family, even though the system completely militated against the development and flourishing.
So the way that you are commonly taught about the history of slavery is that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, and then we all go into a free future together. And black people disappear from the story until 1963 with the March on Washington. But what you've been taught is a history that has left out a lot of important information. And one of those is that right at the end of slavery, there's a period called Reconstruction. And that is this brief moment where black people start to achieve their rights of citizenship in this country, where we flirt with this idea of, out of the fires of the Civil War, that we can create this multiracial democracy that was promised at our founding. Black people start to be elected into the highest offices in the land. That's where we first see our first black senators and our first black congressmen. That period only lasts 12 years, however, because the principal organizing factor of the United States has always been white supremacy. So what we have is this brief period of multiracial democracy where black people have gained the franchise because of the 15th Amendment, where they are starting to work in coalition with white Republicans at that time, which was the Progressive Party at the time, to really reform our democracy, to pass public education laws, and to ensure programs for common good. That all ends with the Great Nadir. And so what happens is, in a contested presidential election, President Rutherford B. Hayes makes a deal to win the presidency, and he promises that he will pull out the Union troops from the South, which had been holding white supremacy in check, and will basically leave black people to fend for themselves. What happens after that period is called the Great Nadir. It is where all of of the brief gains that black Americans start to make at the end of slavery are taken away. This is when we see the black codes being introduced, grandfather clauses which deny black people the franchise. This is where we see the introduction of Jim Crow laws, which are actually racial apartheid laws, but we like to use more benign terms like Jim Crow. This is a very low point in black American life. Black people are being lynched daily in this country at that time. You are seeing black businesses being destroyed. You are seeing segregation being implemented, not just across the South, but across the Northeast. What you see is black people become completely disenfranchised in the South. At that time, around the turn of the 19th century, black people are, 98% of black Americans live in the South, and they completely lose their ability to vote. So we lose democracy, the small foothold in democracy during that period of time, where black people are not allowed to cast a ballot, disappear from public office, and really get forced back into what was considered a quasi-slavery. So that's why when sometimes you will hear people say that we are the oldest democracy in the world, that's not true. Because we actually were not a democracy for the 100-year period that followed the Civil War. And it would take a second bloody civil rights struggle, the one we commonly call the Civil Rights Movement, to actually turn our country into a democracy. So the Great Nadir was devastating for black Americans and devastating for a country that called itself a democracy.
The Civil War was being fought?
Well, I can't remember much about it, but I remember this much. Went to the house to see old Marshall. And I thought old Marshall was dead, but what he had been off in war and come back. You know, he's gone a long time. And all of them just gathered around and see old Marshall again. You know, and old Marshall didn't tell you, it was true.
He didn't tell you that?
No, he didn't tell. They waited. I think now they said they wait them 6 months out of that, 6 months, and turn them loose on the 19th of June. That's why, you know, we celebrate that day, colored folks. Celebrate that day.
When Americans are taught about the end of slavery, we are taught that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. And we are not taught what that actually means, to have been forced for 250 years, generation after generation, to work in all of your labor. The profits of your labor goes to other people. It was illegal for black people in slavery to own property. It was illegal for them to make a will. Anything that they earned actually went to the people who owned them. So when black people are emancipated, they are emancipated with absolutely nothing. No land, no home, not even a bed. They own nothing. Everything that they had belonged to the people who had owned them. Historian Carrie Lee Merritt says that black people were, at emancipation, the only people in the history of this country who started out with zero capital. We don't think enough about what that means, to be emancipated, completely destitute, and dependent upon a society that had just enslaved you, to now offer you assistance to get basic things like housing and shelter. There was mass starvation of formerly enslaved people. Formerly enslaved people were living in burned out buildings trying to scrounge for food. Many of them ended up having to go back and work on the former forced labor camps simply so they wouldn't die. So shortly around the period of emancipation, General Sherman goes to Georgia after a massacre of black Americans, and he asked them, "What do you want?" And this group, this small group of black, formerly enslaved people said, "We want land." Why did they want land? Because land was independence. It wasn't that enslaved people wanted to depend on the very white people who had treated them so poorly. What they wanted was to get land and be left alone, to make lives for themselves. And General Sherman was deeply touched by that, and he issued what became Special Field Order Number 15, commonly known to as 40 Acres and a Mule, though it actually never included the mule. I believe enslaved people wanted a mule, but that wasn't in the special order. And what 40 Acres did, it didn't even give the enslaved people the land. It confiscated land from the traders who had took up arms against the federal government, and it loaned 40-acre tracts to small numbers of formerly enslaved people. And they were to work that land, make money, and then buy that land back from the federal government. Black people were very happy about this because, again, this was their means to independence. But of course, in the story of America, nothing like this could ever last. 4 months after Field Order 15 was signed into law, Abraham Lincoln gets assassinated. He's replaced by Andrew Johnson, a former slave owner and an openly racist president. And he immediately rescinds that field order, and Black people are thrown off of this land, and that land would be returned to the white people who had owned them, who had taken up arms against the government. And that ends this nation's only very brief, very small experiment with paying reparations to the formerly enslaved. What's important, though, is to understand that at the same time, this country is saying that people who had labored for free, who had taken up arms and had helped turn the tide of the war, so Black people, of course, 200,000 formerly enslaved people who ran away and served in the Union, that at emancipation, they are not worthy of receiving any of this land. It will make them dependent on the federal government. At the same time, the federal government is passing the Homestead Act. And the Homestead Act is giving millions and millions of land to white Americans and also using that land to entice white immigrants from Europe to move to the United States and take advantage of this land. The federal government gives 10% of all the American land to white people and is denying formerly enslaved people even 40 acres. So it's a perfect study in the forced poverty and forced disadvantage that Black Americans have experienced even at the end of slavery, and the centuries-long affirmative action programs that this country has always passed for white Americans.
My name is Sherilyn Ifill, and I'm a civil rights lawyer. My name is Sherilyn Ifill, and I'm a civil rights lawyer. I lead an amazing civil rights organization, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. The work I do focuses on Black communities and the rights of Black people in this country. And all civil rights lawyers are fighting for the full citizenship and dignity of the people they represent. I became a civil rights lawyer because I'm a product of the civil rights movement. We didn't have money, but we had dreams, and we were growing up in a time when new doors were opened for us. And so I wanted to be part of the opportunity to not only, I hope, educate, but also to encourage and inspire you to believe that we can make change. A very small group of people transformed the direction of American democracy in the 20th century and made it possible for me to even be sitting here talking to you. Made my life possible. So I know it's possible. One of the reasons I'm on a crusade, if you will, to talk about the 14th Amendment and to help people embrace and understand the 14th Amendment is because I think we tend to talk about our right to be free from racial discrimination in this country in terms that are not constitutional. We talk about it as though it's about feelings, about whether people are fair to us or not, about the hearts of people and whether people are racist in their heart, whether they have a racist bone in their body, when in fact we ought to be talking about our right to be free of discrimination, our right to full citizenship, our right to full dignity as Americans, as constitutionally grounded, as compelled by the language of our foundational document, as intended by the framers of the 14th Amendment. It doesn't matter what the feelings of white people are. It matters what the Constitution says. When we talk about the First Amendment, when we talk about your right to free speech, we don't premise it on the feelings of the person hearing the speech. When we talk about the Second Amendment, think about people who are swaggering around with, giant weapons. They don't talk about it in terms that are about feelings. They say that the Second Amendment entitles them to carry those weapons. We don't talk about our right to be free of discrimination as a constitutional imperative. We know we should be free of discrimination. We know we're entitled to equality, but we don't ground it in that way. And so it allows the conversation to get loose and amorphous, and it allows emotion to take the place of what should be the clear certainty of our right to be full citizens. I could spend days just breaking down the meaning of the 14th Amendment. It's incredibly rich. And I think when we tend to talk about it, we skim over a lot of it because we have to. And so I'll skim over it too. But let me get to what I think are the most important parts. The first line of the 14th Amendment is among the most powerful provisions in the Constitution, and it literally is responsible for America looking like America looks. And it says that every person born in this country or naturalized is a citizen of this country. Birthright citizenship, that's how we describe it. Now that's powerful and important. It was created for the purpose of ensuring that Black people would be citizens of this country after the Civil War. Why did the framers of the 14th Amendment need to do that? Well, first of all, there were enslaved Black people who had not been considered citizens, but it's also true that it was now unclear that even free Black people were citizens. In fact, many believed that no Black people were citizens of the country because of the Supreme Court's decision in the Dred Scott case in 1850, where the Supreme Court essentially said that Black people had really no rights that any white people had to respect. So after the Civil War, we now needed a statement of Black citizenship that would encompass both slave and free. But what's the consequence of that one line? The consequence of that one line is that it becomes the basis upon which America can today talk about itself, or people can talk about this country, as a nation of immigrants. Why? Because what it means is that in the 20th century and in the 19th century, boatloads of white people come to this country, principally from Europe, and if they are naturalized, they become citizens, but moreover, their children, upon birth, become fully American. This whole idea of America as a nation of immigrants can only happen because of that first line of the 14th Amendment that guarantees citizenship to anyone born on this soil. It's a powerful narrative and mythology, but it comes from the first line of the 14th Amendment that was designed to give citizenship to Black people. The 14th Amendment does two other things that are really important. One, it requires that everyone is entitled to due process of the laws. And that means that the state you live in can't do certain things to you without going through some kind of process. They can't just take things from you. They can't limit you in certain kinds of ways without having a justification for doing so, without giving you an opportunity to appear in court and to explain why this should not happen to you or why you should be exempted from this particular thing the state is trying to do. The state has to give you notice before they take your property from you. These are the things we think of as due process. And then, in really what is the coup de grace, the 14th Amendment does something incredibly powerful. It says that every person in the United States is entitled to the equal protection of the laws. Every person, not every citizen, every person within the borders of the United States That means that even if you are not a citizen, there are certain ways that you have to be treated, that you cannot be discriminated against by the state without sufficient reason or rationale. So the concept of equality that probably most of you watching this think of as just kind of part of the concept of being an American, that you should expect, even if it doesn't actually happen, but that you should expect equality, comes to this country in 1868 in this guarantee of equal protection of laws in the 14th Amendment. On the outside of the Supreme Court, the words that are etched into the frontage are equal justice under law. So this whole concept of equality that so defines our legal system, so defines how we think about what our expectations are of this country, is embedded in those words. What's extraordinary about the way Black people respond to the 14th Amendment, both in the immediate aftermath of its ratification, but also in the decades that follow, Black people are incredibly visionary and imaginative about who they want to be and who they are determined to be. So they are creating institutions that they believe can catapult them in that period into establishing full citizenship. They set about trying to purchase land. They set about building their own schools. They set about becoming registered to vote and participating in the political process, running for office. They set about becoming full citizens in every way. They want to participate fully in social life. They want to go to the theater. They want to be able to sit wherever they want to sit on public accommodations. If we think about some of our most august sororities and fraternities, they're created in this period, in the early 20th century. If we think about some of the battles that are fought over segregation, they're fought in the 1880s and 1890s by Black people who understand that segregation is a form of white supremacy meant to return them to a position of servitude. But nevertheless, that visionary power of Black people lives on. And what eventually happens is that we do something that Black people are just uniquely able to do in this country, which is to see a world that doesn't exist. The ability to see an America that doesn't exist. I don't mean an America modeled on some other country. I mean genuinely doesn't exist. So think about what some of those early civil rights pioneers are fighting for. They're fighting for a world of racial equality. They're fighting for a world with no segregation. They're fighting for every Black person to have every opportunity that every white person has. And yet that has never existed in their lifetimes. They've never seen it. It hasn't existed actually in the world in a way that they can possibly even have heard about. But they envision it and they begin to set about trying to imagine, how do we get there? Well, there are many pathways. Some believe the pathway is education. Some believe the pathway is civic organizations. Some believe the pathway is accumulation of wealth. And some believe that the pathway is through making those words of the 14th Amendment mean what they say they mean, and challenging the legal infrastructure that has weakened and hollowed out the promise of the 14th Amendment. And those people become the world's and the nation's first civil rights lawyers. This is where, again, the love of Black people for this country shouldn't be glossed over. I know it may be make some people uncomfortable to even talk about it, but the truth is, Black people have been incredibly patriotic in the most important ways in this country. Patriotic is not saying we're number one and carrying a flag and marching in a parade or even necessarily fighting in the military. Patriotism is being willing to stare your country in the face, see it for all its good and all its bad. Work to make it better. Demand that it be better. Work to ensure that it lives up to its highest